Peace is a vain wish. Our crusade may one day adopt another name, but it will never truly end. In the far future, there will be only war.
Hello YouTube, it is I, Sindarius, the Amber Praetorian here. With the upcoming release of 11th edition, I started working on a video project, painting various Space Marine chapters, so instead of keeping you around for too long here at the end of the video, I'm going to just get this out of the way in the beginning. If you enjoy the video, please leave a like, subscribe for more down the line, and leave a comment if you found this tutorial helpful, or perhaps you have a favorite chapter or faction you'd like to see painted up next. And with that, let's just get right into this video. So for this particular tutorial, I have already built the squad of Infernus Marines that I'm going to be painting here today. I'm going to be starting off with Vallejo off-white on the shoulder pads. Mind you, since we have primed in black, this will likely need to be done in multiple layers, as you may be able to see that the shoulder, or like the undercoat, will start to peek through at certain points in time. So be sure to thin your paints and just do a couple layers. It's nothing too crazy out the bat. After you get a nice solid flat coat on your first one, go to your next one and base coat the shoulder pads for the next one. Let each of them dry before you come back for a second coat, because pushing around wet paint isn't going to allow a good coat to look good. The sergeant for this particular squad is going to be painted slightly different due to the lore of the Black Templars. Each squad is traditionally led by a sword brethren, so their shoulder pads, instead of having this off-white color, is going to have a trim of red. And for that red, we're going to start off with Scarlet Red from Vallejo as well. And with a relatively alright brush, it doesn't have to be too crazy well kept, but something with a decent point. Be very just careful to use the side of the brush to dry, to just get a little bit of red on the edges of the shoulder pad. These Infernus Marines and Modern Primaris kits are really nice because they have these raised edges along their shoulder pads, which make it really nice to transfer paint onto with the side of your brush. And you don't have to have a very particular expensive brush in order to get this technique done. These brushes I'm using are only like $2-3 brushes that you can find at a hobby store that are not of obscenely great quality, but they get the job done. And especially if you're a new beginner, I always highly recommend these relatively cheaper brushes, since it'll teach you brush control, teach you how to maintain your brushes, and overall it's a good way to get you started. Only after you start understanding brush maintenance and the like, you want to go and get some better quality brushes that might be like $12, $13, $14, $15 a brush. Beyond these shoulder pads, I'm also going to be getting a few other parts of each model base coated in the same red, primarily the Promethium fuel and the handles for the flammers, which will end up having a very nice bright look to them once we end up doing the highlight step. Also, for the Black Templars, I'm using a fine tip brush and being as careful as I can picking out the eyes. Then we're going to go on to Glorious Gold, also from Vallejo Game Color. And we're going to be picking out the top like hood vent cover or heat cover, whatever it's called, for these Infernus Marines. It'll give it a nice bright appearance. And for the sword brethren of the squad, the sergeant, if you will, I'm going to also eventually pick out his chest Imperialis in gold to make him stand out versus his regular battle brothers, as it will give it a nice this guy's in charge type vibe to the look. So after we get this Imperialis on the chest done, we're eventually going to move over to a gunmetal paint, which we're going to end up hitting other metallic areas of these models for. Those are going to be parts like belt buckles, other parts of the weapons, The sword in particular, on this case for the sword brethren, there's going to be some metallic bits on the gun themselves. Essentially, almost anywhere else with this gunmetal gray, we're going to apply that we want to have a metallic sheen, a steel type look. Eventually, after we get all these metallic bits painted up, we'll have a few other highlights and washes that we can do to really make these metallics pop with very little effort. It is quite a nice little trick that I've picked up over my time of painting. But before we go any farther, for the main brothers, we're going to switch over to Pro Acryl Coal Black. Any black will do. I just particularly like a lot of the Pro Acryl stuff that I have. And we're just cleaning up the trim on the regular Battle Brothers, since I've overspilt them when I was painting up the shoulder pads. Then, to make a really nice vibrant red, we're going to go over to Bold Pyro Red from Pro Acryl. And anywhere that is red before, we're going to paint on the raised edges in order to get this really nice vibrant red, as you kind of already start seeing the shoulder pads go from this burgundy style color to a bright vibrant red. It's really up to you on how much you want to paint. You could paint only a little bit of it to make the most extreme edges pop, or you could cover the whole entire thing, as since you're not painting from black, it will help make it more vibrant. Especially if you were to paint this over like a white primed base, it would also look very good. However, this Bold Pyro Red is just to help make all those parts look very good, as you can see the difference at the current moment between those two shoulder pads. One's highlighted, one's not. Next, we're going to go over to Mahogany, which we're going to pick up and base coat all the belt straps, the leather pouches, and the like, just to give it a little bit of different tonal color variety. It's really up to you. Later on, we're eventually going to give it a different color to make the leather pop a little bit more. I didn't end up liking the result too much because I felt like it strayed a little bit too much into the skin territory, but we're also going to be picking out our purity seals with tan flesh. And eventually this will also be washed to bring down the color, and then we'll punch the highlights to make the actual purity seals really nice and bright and vibrant. And for the washes, here we are making my wash. There's Lamian Medium from, I think they're Warhammer paints now, and then there's some sepia ink from Dollar Roundy. And what I like to do is just take a couple of drops, mix it in with the medium, and it'll create a nice wash. It almost acts kind of like a contrast paint, though it's much easier to do, and also much more efficient, I feel, because it's going to last you way longer. And we're just going to hit pretty much all the metallic areas with this wash and just push it around, and it's going to start to cause the metallics to kind of look grungy, kind of like have some age instead of just being pure. I'm even covering some of the red areas too, for like the bolters or the hand covers on this Infernus Marine's fire blaster, but it's just to add a weathered look. Then we're going to go back with our metals, and we're going to highlight back up the metals. We're not going to hit every place that we hit with a wash. The goal is the wash still tints essentially the darkest points, but reapplying this metal color and being very careful where we apply it gives the metallic colors some depth that they otherwise wouldn't have without a wash. And that's how you can get a very nice and simple looking metallic color without having to do many layers or going back and forth constantly with a lot of different paints in particular. After doing our glorious gold, we're going to eventually switch over to gunmetal gray or gunmetal and touch up those metallic parts that we've done. That's the actual flamer bits, this little coil on the Empire Blaster, and then for the regular Battle Brothers, we're going to touch up the little chest Imperiali, since that's what I decided to do for the regular Marines to kind of make them look different than the Sword Brethren. Then for highlights, we're going to take some of our off-white and tan flesh with a half and half mix and use that to punch the highlights on these purity seals. It's going to give it some nice looks. You let the parts in the shadow or kind of like buried underneath more parchment to be not highlighted to kind of give it a sprawling scroll look. It'll really sell the effect, especially after we watched it. It'll give it aged look, which will be quite nice. And here's another example of me applying the highlights. I'm looking for the folds, the raised areas where the light will catch on it. Doesn't have to be too much, but it just adds a little bit of effect. On to the next highlight. We're going to be mixing bold titanium white and off-white. And for this, we're just applying it on the raised shoulder pads of these main normal Battle Brothers. All you have to do is maybe 1 or 2 coats. This is in a half and half mix. You want to make sure to water it down a little bit so it's thin enough to apply in a nice even coat. And to help prevent the white paints from giving a little bit of a chalky texture. And the reason we're applying these from like in a direction from above is just to make it look like these are the brightest parts of the pauldron. Some people like their pauldrons to look a little bit more grungy. Jay from Eons of Battle likes to have his more in like an off-white or tan. But it really comes down to personal preference. As you notice there, I have a slightly painted different holster, which I basically used the highlight mix for the purity seals. I ended up not including it because I wasn't entirely sold on the effect, but overall this is how you get a nice and good looking squad in a relatively short period of time. It doesn't take many colors, just a little bit of effort, and then you have a nice looking squad. So mind you, from first sprue clip to final product, it only took me about 4 hours worth of work building and painting these. I haven't done their bases yet, but that's mainly because I painted these up for a friend and I don't know what their basing scheme is exactly. So in order to let them base it, I ended up leaving them unbased for them. If you ended up liking this paint tutorial, be sure to leave a like, a follow, or a subscription. Other than that, I highly recommend go ahead and take out a look at a few videos that I link. They're excellent content creators and well worth a watch.